What happens when a Yale MBA, who's advised 1,000 founders across 100 countries,
building out a business that's focused on helping people up level, not just in the current world, but even prior to that, I would say,
sits down with me, who's diagnosed 88,000 businesses and counting?
I kind of work and develop several businesses and work with several people around the world. So I'm working across time zones. Tends to be a little bit skewed to my time zone, I would say, because they tend to overlap.
Ethan Slotkin. He's built 20 companies. He shaped strategy at American Express and now changes complexity into clarity with companies worldwide.
I've spent a lot of time in the past year or two reconciling with the current context of the world and tools and where are things going. What are humans and what do they do, right? In the context of work and business.
If you've ever wondered what separates elite operators from everyone else,
I don't want to convince people who don't want to have a growth mindset or don't know why they're there to be there. You know, like do that work first yourself, or I'll give you a tool to consider that at least, right? And if you still want to be here, let's go.
This conversation has all the answers. It's in this episode right here, and I am the Chief of Growth.
Chief of Growth, 88,000 deep. Took the old return to owner. That's the only truth.
Ethan, how you doing, buddy?
What's going on, Jay?
Not much. Welcome to the Chief of Growth show. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're on the West Coast right now. Is that correct?
I'm in the West Coast. I've been in Los Angeles for about 11 or 12 years. I'm a native New Yorker. That's why I talk a little bit fast.
Gotcha.
But yeah, out in the West Coast.
So obviously I'm going to want to know, how did you decide to forsake the East Coast and your New Yorker friends and decide, let's go out to LA? I mean, obviously it's beautiful. Besides all that, what was the impetus?
So I've, ever since I was 5 years old, I've been a diehard Lakers fan, a 49ers fan, although that's north, of course, but diehard Lakers fan, big poker player, play a lot of sports. So it's actually like lifestyle conditions more than anything. I've always wanted to live out here, and I almost went here for grad school, and then at the last minute didn't do it. And then it was finally the right time, and I could take the chance and made the shift out here. It's been 11 or 12 years. Have Lakers season tickets now.
Oh, wow.
Play outside. Pretty good.
So in terms of, is this home now? Is this like until the foreseen future, we're out in the West Coast?
Married, have a kid. So yeah, this is home.
How old are your kids? You have a kid, you said?
A kid, 2 years old. Yeah.
2 years old. How's it father for the first time?
It's super fun. It's super, super fun. I was actually very concerned. I don't know about you, but I'm a sleep sensitive person. I need a certain amount of sleep to be able to restore, especially these days with as much processing going on. And that's of course a thing, but it hasn't been an issue, to be honest with you. Like the only concerns I've had, which were very small ones, have not been an issue. It's been just all good and just about no bad. So it's awesome.
Very nice.
Thank you for asking.
The thing about being a father, and I find that's the most interesting, right, is, and tell me if you feel this way, and if you don't, obviously, that means you're probably evil, but I'm just joking. So I've done a lot in sports, right? You know, I've done a lot in athletics, accomplished a lot there. I've accomplished a lot in business, right? The one thing that I feel the most like a champion, right, and it seems clearly that most of the population can do it, is actually procreating and having a child. I feel like it's such a champion thing. It's so weird.
Yeah. I 1,000,000% agree with you. It's to build on that, like the best experience I've ever been through out of anything. This includes, you know, the sports stuff, the travel heydays, the everything, you know, the best, just so awesome.
So share a little secret. My audience knows this already. So I'm 51, right?
Mm-hmm.
51. I have a 14-year-old. I have an 11-year-old. And I now have a 4-month-old. So I decided to go all the way back.
You must really like it.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice. You know, you make the choice, and it's been great. It's been fantastic, and the sleep thing is definitely a worry as well. It's pretty cool. So you're born in New York, is that correct? Like right in New York, or are we talking like rural New York or
Long Island? Yeah, from Long Island. Lived in the city several times before. But just kind of grew up with that tempo, right? You know, like city tempo, right? I just grew up with that tempo and pace and density and diversity and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that shaped a very big part of who I am and how I think, I would say. What's actually interesting is that Los Angeles is a huge city. I mean, it's the third biggest city, let's say, or second biggest city in the US, basically. And obviously it's structured differently, but it's night and day with New York, to be honest with you. Los Angeles is great in its own ways, and yet at times it feels very, very slow to me compared to New York. So it's definitely been an adaptation, funny enough. But yeah, New Yorker from Long Island, city a bunch of times, now out here at this point.
How many brothers and sisters growing up?
Zero. Just
Only
me.
child. Only
Yeah,
child.
yeah, unfortunately.
The interesting thing about the only child, I look at the personality development of people, and it's usually based off of birth order and your impact, obviously of your household and how many brothers and sisters. And what's interesting about the only child is they develop in this hyper analytical to start with, but then because there's no void for that, humorous kind of empath, side of things too as well, they develop all those. So like they're almost like in society, they're a little bit more on the chameleon side, and they can adapt
That's
very
interesting.
nicely.
That's interesting. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. In my particular case, and my friends who are only children, I kind of see like a little bit of good and bad there. I mean, the good is chameleon, maybe creativity, certainly, because you kind of have to occupy your own time and find things interesting. On the flip side, there's some bad side. I wouldn't necessarily want my son to grow up as an only child if possible. I think there's a lot of benefit to relating to people and sharing and having to navigate things like that. I think that's useful as well. And so for me, myself, humorously, I say I care about people a lot. But there are things I'm still learning now, like many people, even being older, just because of the nature of how I grew up, and only child being one of the things, to be honest with you.
For the audience, obviously, I've looked into you. Obviously have an understanding of what you do now. Let's break down what fills the day to day other than chasing a 2-year-old.
Oh man, days today are a little bit different than 2 years ago and prior to that. And I'm not talking like every 2 years or years different. I'm talking the step function that many of us are kind of feeling right now in some way. I'm spending a lot of time on multiple monitors, which is not my setup these days, heavily multi-processing and parallel pathing and 24/7ing and managing team and stuff like that. So let me be more specific about what that means. I kind of work and develop several businesses and work with several people around the world. So I'm working across time zones. Tends to be a little bit skewed to my time zone, I would say, because they tend to overlap. But I work with several time zones. I start my day these days with a team that's in Asia right now, building out a business that's focused on helping people up level, not just in the current world, but even prior to that, I would say, like, and not just go like 10% better, 5% better, just revamp their way of thinking and way of operating to really crush it in the current world. So we're building a community around that, expanding that, some education and knowledge and some, portfolio work and so on and so forth. And then I spend the good chunk of the rest of my day solutioning for that, building infrastructure and technology and so on. And then also building content on my side and helping other people up level as well. So I'd say the thread across it is global in orientation, wide demographic. It could be anywhere from 21 to, 45, arguably, I'd say. Tends to be more skewed towards early entrepreneurs or freelancers, but not limited to that.
Is there a specific trade, if I may? Early entrepreneurs is a specific trade, like
skews more services based, I would say, than not. But I've worked with a lot of different businesses, but it skews more services based, is what I would say. And the general focus is helping them become top 0.001% individuals, which is to say, not just solopreneurs or not just freelancers, but these days, even people within companies that that want to control what they can control and just crush it. So what that looks like is, as you know very well, like several years ago, it was contained, 8, 10, 12, whatever, how many hours you work in the day, and you leave to go home. And maybe you have a team, if you're lucky, on the other side of the world, parallel processing stuff overnight, if you're lucky, right? And that's what the setup is. And now it's, how do I orchestrate 24/7 around the clock with my agents and my team and everything else to just turn out as much as possible, as orchestrated as possible, with a totally different orientation of what your screens look like and everything, and how that relates to team and people missing context and language, that whole puzzle. And translating that to other people to teach them that so they can thrive, whether they want to be a solopreneur, whether they want to be a freelancer, whether they want to have a team, or if they're part of a company, controlling what they can control as an individual, basically.
So do these people find you? Because, it sounds like it's almost a specialized client in some way, or you would have to do a lot of heavy lifting. Do people find you? Do you find people? And what's that process that you go through of selecting a client that you feel is going to be an absolute fit for you?
Yeah, so I don't, historically, I do a lot of services work where I literally go in and help, work with the person or work with the business. I spend more time these days on the person than the business, even though I do some of the business as well. And I don't do as much direct coaching. I do a little bit of it and a little bit of services work. I'm more giving, creating communities, creating scalable systems and frameworks and things like that to get them where they want to go. So it's more group oriented things. It's more product oriented things. that just get them where they want to go, establish the baseline basically, and then dive into just build, whatever that means. Does that make sense?
It does. Just to get a little more context, are you walking in and looking at, let's say, operation side of things? Is it more on the financial side of things? Are they kind of linked in that? Is it sales and marketing aspect? Is there a specialty as it relates to that?
Yes, but you're going to find the answer funny here.
Okay.
The thesis behind it is making all these individuals full stack. So it's not, isolated to just finance or marketing, anything. The point is, how do we get everybody very, very well versed in everything so they can orchestrate better and more effectively and just be nimble problem solvers, right? Such that if they're in a team with multiple people, everyone can do everything and move around and pivot as the organization's needed. Or if they want to just do something themselves and crush it, they can manage it effectively, right? So the question becomes, how can they learn all that stuff, understand how they relate, and then work with agents and so on and so forth to like orchestrate their day correctly? So that's the underlying thesis here is full stack business, for lack of a better description, full stack everything, to not be reliant on, traditional teams.
So if I have the mindset, right, and maybe it's old world, right? If I have the mindset that when I go into an organization and I look at that company, I have one goal, right? And that one goal is that it comes in three derivatives. One is obviously that company produces a profit. Simple as that, right? Design the profit. Number two is increase the quality of life of the client, right, overall. And then look at, let's just say how they can exit profitably. The way I look at it, and maybe you can change my way of thinking on this, is
or vice versa.
I kind of look at it like a fantasy football team, right?
Yeah.
And you walk in, you look at the organization, and you kind of say, okay, I'm going to forget that there's players here for a second. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm going to look at it and say, in this organization, what are the positions I actually need? And what is their contribution to the operation, the finance, sales, marketing, whatever it is? What is it? And I break it down into operations and then really say, okay, whatever the compensation structure is going to be for this position, now I'm going to create the return on investment. And it doesn't matter what they do. It could be an administrator. It could be the easiest one is sales. You get a commission for a sale. Operations, whatever it may be. So I'm of the belief, once I've got that, I then can now draft and look and say, okay, what do we actually got here? Oh, if we've got 5 quarterbacks, that doesn't really make sense. Can I repurpose them? So it's kind of on the line of what you're doing. Yeah. But I'm the believer that there's good quarterbacks, good wide receivers, and good running backs. What you're kind of saying is I teach everybody to be able to play each position. Is that accurate, is what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I hear you playing Moneyball over there is what I hear going on. And I buy into this. This makes total sense. I think the one wrinkle here is I'm operating with one slightly different it's not a working assumption. It's just a different lens, or maybe it's just, a hope, for lack of a better description, which is unless it's a bigger organization, if it's an organization that is 50 people, it's at 50 million plus, or it's an assumption that you're going to need a bunch of people because not everyone can do everything. You have business units. Anything that's south of that, I'm kind of operating under the working assumption that maybe it can operate more leanly. And if it can operate more leanly, then it's going to be an easier to manage organization, of course, better margins, so on and so forth. Or alternatively, of course, that you're going to have a lot of A players that can solve the thing and you can just do more now than previously, right? But I'm operating with the constraint, especially if it's a newer thing, of how few people can we have in there? I know it's not going to be a popular opinion, but how few people can we have in there to be able to go crush it and do what we need to do, basically, right? While also protecting the risk of the business, right? Because if you have any key person risk, you got a problem, of course, right? And how to balance that. And I'm just trying to push the envelope on that. And to be really honest with you, all of us, like, you and I were talking earlier, but it's a very complicated point right now that we're at, right? Like we're all learning every single day and there's new technology every day and we're pushing the limits of what's possible and how we could use 24/7 and parallel processing and how precise it could be and all these kinds of problems. And I don't think any of us know this answer of like what's actually possible. I'm just working with the starting assumption that I think it could be very few people, smaller operations, so on and so forth, and gunning for that, but also balancing, okay, well, what does that mean? Let's just say you have 20 good people in an organization, but you can operate it with 10 people. Well, you can redeploy those 10 people into an expansion operation or do something. They're still great people. So to me, the bigger constraint right now, and it's funny because I actually like literally recorded a piece of content before this on this exact topic. You have your natural KPIs that exist, right? Mm-hmm. You've got your revenue, you've got your margin, and so on and so forth, right? Very obvious stuff. The KPI that I care about more than anything these days is velocity of knowledge. And people are either going to be extremely rapid growth oriented people, especially in a confusing time like this, or they're not. And if they're not, they're kind of opting into not, in my opinion. And for me, just personally, and again, not a popular opinion, those are not the people I want on my team, to be honest with you. I want people recognizing that there's chaos right now and it's a little bit complex. And I don't expect, at least on my teams, anybody to be magical. I mess up every day. I'm learning every day. I have no clue what I'm doing, to be honest with you. I just expect them to come and care, to be honest, and have a growth mindset. And that's the metric I'm looking for. As long as there's those people and the balance sheet can support it, there's places for everybody, right? To be able to grow it. Just the business may look a little bit different than it did previously, for instance.
How it differs with our clients is I'm dealing with a lot of family-owned businesses, right? And those family-owned businesses, they're in that revenue band from $1 to $100 million, right? And it doesn't really matter the size, but what the most interesting thing is when it's a family-run business, in most cases based on trust or based on, people say nepotism. I don't really believe that. I believe that you're going to want the best for your kid. And if it happens to be inside your entity in some way, shape, or form, you're going to do it. And you want to make sure that they don't go through the same trials and tribulations you may have gone through. So are you going to pay them okay? Yeah, you're probably going to pay them okay. Yeah. But in that, I think the idea is, and it's very difficult for us sometimes, and this is where I was going to get to, is I believe if they're going to be paid X number of dollars, I want to know what the return on investment is I'm getting from them. Yeah. And they have to hit it just as much as Johnny Appleseed over here. So you get into these locations, and this is where the question is going to go, is you get into these locations and, you know, I'm hearing the philosophy and stuff like that. Is it very difficult to get a whole organization to buy in? And how do you break that down? Does that start with the owner? Does that start with the organization? Sometimes you have to bring it back to the owner. How do you find that unwinding and untangling as you have that intervention, I guess? I use that word on purpose, intervention.
It's a good choice of words. You know, I'll give you like the two-pronged answer here, right? Like this is part of the reason why I prefer to deal with individuals who are coming to that conclusion rather than organizations, because organizations are very, very complex right now, right? If you do go in the organization direction, for me personally, my experience is you have to get the CEO to be able to buy into the logic and have that growth mindset to begin with, and the open-mindedness. If that doesn't happen, there's nothing else is going to happen at that point. It's just plain old fact, right? Change management 101. It's not going to happen, right? The problem is, it's not only do you have to get that to happen, you need to get the executive team for that to happen. You need to get everybody else for that. It's just a complex thing. And as you know, people are people and they're resistant to change since the dawn of time, right? Myself included in that sometimes, right? So it's possible. It's very hard, even if it's rational. Not everybody's rational, right? There's rational and there's emotional, as you know. And it's literally the reason why I'd rather have somebody in an organization that say, look, my organization is not moving as fast as I want to move, but I want to be in control of my own destiny. And I know I need to learn this stuff. Let me get the foundational skills I need to learn and control my own destiny at least. And then if it means I can then bring it to my teams and my organization, then I'll do that. That's cool. But it's my own independent decision, even if I'm in a company, or I'm a solopreneur and that's what I want to learn, or whatever else it is. So I prefer to have it at the not, company buy-in level for the exact reasons you're suggesting. It's under normal circumstances complex. Under these circumstances, like mind-blowing complex, I would say.
The what I'm finding is as you're discussing this, there is a large similarity in what we do, and you say it very eloquently. And sometimes I'm known for being a little on the crass side of things when I use terms like intervention. Right? Especially CEOs, especially business owners in general, they form these habits, right? And these habits either make them successful or less than successful. And you get involved in their life. And if they were a robot, right, it would be easy because I could just reprogram. You know what I'm saying? Add education, reprogram. How much of your time, and I noticed you said, I kind of avoid the coaching side. That's what I heard. Maybe I'm wrong. How much of your time is really kind of taking an individual and being that accountability wall or that friction point of accountability? Is that part of your process? Is it something you avoid, or is it you're like, that's the whole thing?
Yeah, great question. With my teams, that's definitely a thing, right? Like humans are humans and there's empathy and everyone's doing their best, right? But my line of thinking is something like the following. It's first off, it's not that I don't coach or I'm averse to coaching. Like I like doing some of that. I actually enjoy that stuff, to be honest with you. But the line of thinking, whether it's for coaching or somebody that's going to join, a system or a community or something, or even team, the line of thinking is, first off, do they know why they're there? And are they motivated to be there? First and foremost, right? They have a very clear understanding of why they're there. I know that sounds like such a silly question, but it's an important question, right? Then the question afterwards is, given that they're there, do they have just a general growth mindset? Are they willing to put in the time? And what are their boundaries? Because you never want to violate anybody's boundaries. You got to figure out what's possible. Can they put in the time, so on and so forth. If those two questions are true, that they understand why they're there and they're motivated, and then trust is built where they show up every day and they do the thing, I will invest as much time as humanly needed at that point to be able to get them there at any level, at the service one-to-one level, at the system and community level, at the team level. I'll invest as much time as possible. Where the thing I want to cut off is I'd rather have a narrower top of funnel, but a better funnel, I would say, a higher converting funnel than a bigger funnel. I don't want to convince people who don't want to have a growth mindset or don't know why they're there to be there. Like, do that work first yourself, or I'll give you a tool to consider that at least, right? And if you still want to be here, let's go. Like, I'm all game for that, no problem whatsoever. And it's kind of akin to what you're saying, right? Which is like, you can help a company that wants to be helped. You can help a CEO that wants to be helped, or that you can partner on. And it's not even one directional. It's joint, right? It's partnership. But if they don't want to be helped, or if they're not open to the idea, or if they don't even know what the current context is, or it's a futile battle. It's going to be a burn of your time. You're not even going to hit the perceived KPIs anyway and metrics for the relationship. So it's a lost cause to begin with, I feel like. So this is one of those proverbial like pre-firing clients kind of a thing, or filtering them out kind of a thing, where it's just a trap regardless, So I'd rather take any like landing page with a form, or take any scenario that exists. My preference is to be very transparent, not even like, be hyperbolic or anything, transparent, and filter people out who don't want to be there, and give them a solution in the meantime. If you don't know what the answer is to this thing, here's a tool, consider it. And when you're ready, we're here for you. It's no problem whatsoever. But not take people who, maybe just want the end result, but don't know what goes into it, or, any of those kind of permutations,
How deep do you go into the psychology side of things with your teams, with your clients? And I'm going to talk about a tool I picked up along the way, but I just want to know what the depth is of understanding, because really we are creatures of habit, and I'm a big believer in impetuses of fear and greed, and how much that has an impact on obviously the things you describe. So how much and how often is psychology part of the actual process?
I'm curious to hear your tool.
Okay.
But yeah, a very big part, to be honest with you. I mean, I was literally having a conversation with my team today of, we have this community, and, with this community, you need to have a very good sense of each person. Imagine a CRM where you have everyone on there, and people, and when they joined, and the relationship, and so on and so forth. You should have a very good pulse on why they joined, what their hot buttons are, what their concerns are, what their dream is, what they're trying to get to, what their temperament is right now, so on and so forth. So much so that you can tap into that effectively to say, do we have the solution that can serve this problem? Yes, no. And if the answer is no, come back to me and tell me what we need to be able to serve that, ideally at scale, right? Gotcha. So yeah, I'm max believer of Maslow's hierarchy. People need to survive, incentive structures, 1,000,000%. The romantic part of me wants to not believe that and be like, everyone, is society driven. And so, no, there's a Maslow's hierarchy. They need to survive. They need to take care of their family, their needs, so on and so forth. So if that's the first principle, the question only is like, where are they at right now? What do they need to get to? And how can we help them? And so that's an everyday conversation that's happening with our teams. And that literally boils into part of my background, which is like loyalty and reward structures and incentive systems. Very, very tied to this. Yeah.
Now, will you adopt an incentive system based on a discovery that this is the driver of this group, or this is the driver that's a little different than compensation or whatever? It might be time and stuff like. Do you find yourself having to be very pivoting very quickly based on the culture of that group, or do you try to get them to adopt one that you can see a little bit more from a concrete return?
It's a little bit of a funny question, actually. And the reason it's a funny question is because under normal circumstances, what I'd say to you is, look, we figure out what the group needs. And if we're the ones providing the offering, we have to cater to them and do that at scale, ideally, right? What's been a little bit funny right now, and this is only a 2026, 2025 thing, previously almost never, just right now, is I'm finding there's a lot of people that want the endpoint, they want the outcome, and they have less idea now than in previous years of what they need to do to get there. In previous years, it was like, oh, if I take a course, or if I do this thing, or I learn the skill, I can get there, because it was a relatively static world, moving but static world. Now it's such a confusing world that I don't think in many of these cases, a lot of the people don't even know what they need to do to be able to get there, to be honest with you. So there's a little bit of this like coming up with a solution and teaching why the solution is the solution and the logic that exists behind it, because it's just a different world right now in 2026 compared to past years. So just a little bit of a different time than past, I would say. Does that answer your question?
It does. The aspect, if I may bring up that, what I found is I was dealing with human beings, as I said, and it would be great if they were robots. I could just reprogram them. That's all well and great. But what it seemed like in dealing with human beings, and I think you can comment on this, is they're thinking, they're feeling, they have bad days that particular day. They have different stories, different backgrounds. And we're going to dabble into yours. I want to know how you got into this and where you kind of, came from as it relates. But in this particular case, I found that every time I sat down with an owner and I started with this one question, and then once it started, seemed to unveil a great asset within the relationship. Kind of started studying it. And are you familiar with Carl Jung and Shadow Driver stories?
I'm not familiar with Shadow Driver stories. I'm
Okay,
curious to hear
so
this.
when I'm sitting across another human being, I don't care if it's an employee of the firm, I don't care if it's an executive of the firm, I don't care if it's one of my employees, if it's an administrator, doesn't matter the role. I find that as soon as I exercise this tool, I'm going to call it a tool, I exercise this process, that I have a better understanding of that individual and I have a better outcome of my daily interaction with who they are. Or if it's short-lived, same thing. And so the Shadow Driver story, as my interpretation is that human beings along the way, obviously we are born, we have whatever our family unit is, and our personality starts to develop and we go on in life. And I find it very common in anybody who is a driven person, right? I'm going to define it as a driven person. I'm not going to put any more legs to that, is that in some point along the way, there is a significant emotional event that occurs. And that significant emotional event has only two outcomes. And those two outcomes are they now will spend the rest of their life, and again, maybe unpopular, victimizing themselves that this significant emotional event happened. And the reason why they haven't developed in life or driven in life or become more is simply because of this event. On the other side, the other individual creates an impetus. And the impetus is that pain and that significant emotional event is usually caused by somebody close to them in some way. And it creates two separate senses of zeal. And one of those is fear and the other is greed. Okay. So I'll give you an example of this. An individual, myself, if I may, along the way, my mother essentially fired me from working for her firm. And she said, go out in the world, you're going to fail. Nobody understands you the way I do. Nobody, can handle you and so on and so forth. And that's the short form. Let's go. Yeah. But what it resulted in is obviously it created this big fear. And this fear is that she's probably right. If I'm mediocre, if I don't drive, if I'm not always driven, I'm going to, in some way, I am going to fail. So it creates this biggest fear. But in the opposite side, it also creates this huge greed. And that greed is that I'm going to prove her wrong. And I found that I started talking to business owners or employees, anybody, my audience in any way, and say, okay, let me ask you a question. Can I ask you why you get up and go to work every day? That's the question. Yeah. And before you answer, and this is how I always set it up, and before you answer, this is the type of answer I'm looking for. And then I unveil mine. So now I'm unveiled. I have been vulnerable. I kind of say from an emotional standpoint, this is what mine is overall. This is what it's created. And as long as I set it up that way, where now I'm, I hate to say naked, but, naked in front of them. And then I ask that question and then they tell me theirs. And as soon as I understand that story, I'm not going to use it to manipulate the relationship or the situation, but now everything I want to teach that person, I make sure they understand how it helps them on that journey. In other words, it helps them. I'm about to teach you this. I'm about to give you this tool. I'm about to do this. And what it's going to do is move you further away from that fear of yours and closer to the greed. So a little long-winded in terms of the tool. Do you feel you do that almost in an innate aspect, or do you see that being relevant and valuable in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that, first off, and giving your example. I mean, I love it. I like the thinking behind it, the lead in of making it kind of parallel and comfortable, of course. Like, that's great. I really, really like it. I don't explicitly do that, and maybe I should moving forward. I do it in a different way a little bit, I would say, indirect way, which is to say, I need to understand from people. Let me say this in a better way. It's going to sound a little bit crass, like you said, and a little bit funny. But when I have somebody that's considering joining the team, I want to know from them kind of the two things I said before. Number one, why are you here? Like, do you know why you're here? Why specifically do you want to be here? without judgment, right? Just like, what do you know? What do you not know? What can I answer for you? And do you want to be here?
And do
That's
those
kind of question
answers
number one.
range from a paycheck all the way up to I
Yeah,
believe
yeah,
in
yeah.
the vision kind of thing? Like, so that's
Yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah.
go ahead.
For sure. And then the second question is, what are your current challenges and where do you want to get to? Right. So I'm not just going as far as asking the why and root cause question like you're asking here, of like the family of origin or whatever the root is for any given person. And maybe I should do that. But at least I need to understand what their challenge is and what their dream world is and where they want to get to for the next 6 months, year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, to figure out if we can map a path to that. Because if we can't map a path to that, I can't do anything. I can't help. So I think there's similarities to I think what you're describing here, even though it's not the identical approach. But I won't. I never want to like cross the boundary and the limitation. And people are only comfortable sharing what they want to share, right? And I don't want to cross that line ever. And like you, I'll model it on myself first. I'm happy to model it for them on myself first. But to the extent that they're willing to share, I really only want to have people on the team who have done enough thinking to say, I know I want to be here, and here's what I want to get to. And then I can fill in the gaps of, can I help you? Can we give you what you want and get you where we want to get to in all scenarios? Because it's not perfectly clear always, right? There's lots of scenarios in a business such that you're going to be happy in every scenario and you're going to be good, basically. The reason is, and it's again a greedy, selfish reason, is I only want to invest in certain people that actually have that fit. I actually don't care personally about raw book smarts or where you came from or education or even like hard skills, to be honest with you, to some extent. I mean, I care, but I don't really care. I care more about like the DNA of the person and why they're there, and are they going to really care and be excited, and does it match their incentive structure and their goals, kind of like you're describing right now. I'll take that all day, every day, over the alternative, like a really smart, really sharp person, but who's there for the wrong reasons or is not motivated or whatever else. All day, every day, I'll take this person. So to summarize, not identical to what you're doing, but similar-ish, I think.
There is a similarity in what you were describing, specifically as forget my clients. Obviously, I'm the CGO of a firm. I'm interacting with all different layers and tiers of our business and functions, right? And by finding out these stories, as I said, I'm able to coach better. But the one thing that I take from any employee, and I say kind of this to myself, but then I do communicate it, I can't teach heart. And I think that's really what you're saying. Yeah. I can't teach heart. I can teach you any business acumen under the sun. I can teach you all aspects of psychology. I cannot teach you heart. And I think that's what you're looking for, not only as a client, but obviously as an employee too as well, right?
That's right. And it's why my default answer has become in both of those sides, right? That I need more of a reason why yes than no, to be honest with you, right? I'll give you an example. And again, it's a weird world right now. It's a different world. For my team, and my default is, I know I need, let me pull this back for a second, because I think this is an interesting topic to talk about right now, especially. I've spent a lot of time in the past year or two reconciling with the current context of the world and tools and where are things going. What are humans and what do they do, right? In the context of work and business, right? Like, what do they do? And what are the specific purposes and reasons, like why they're supposed to be in business? With the assumption that I'm leading this organization, I'm leading this business, but I like flat organizations. I don't like organizations that are super hierarchical, even though there's some of that needed. What are humans and what do they do? And I think what we all know is that the bottom of the pyramid is not there anymore. Anything that's like strict processing work or anything is, gone, as long as it's clean, right? It's clear. Everyone, I think, knows that. And I kind of came to this conclusion that there's like several main pieces of value for people, some of which you touched on before, right? And I think where it really boils down to is complex orchestration is one, judgment, which is the combination of critical thinking, culture, so on and so forth. That's a category. Then you have things like sales and community management and things like that. Places where humans want humans, for lack of a better description. And there's very few exceptions I found other than those few things, some of which overlap, right? Because of that, my lens on my, my businesses and even clients, things like that is, at least for the business, is I'm defaulting towards more agent and technology centric businesses. And I want people on the team. Like I love working with people who are what you just described, right? Who have heart and are motivated and so on and so forth. But I would much rather not take someone than take someone who's very smart, but doesn't have that motivation and know why they're there and so on and so forth. And so it's kind of become, I don't know how else to say it, but it's become fuck yes or no is what it's become. There's nothing in between. It's ones and zeros, literally nothing in between. They're either absolutely this or they're not at all. And that's kind of what I tell my team in every day is I want you guys to think in ones and zeros and nothing in between so we can make better decisions. But it's very, very clear in this case. I'm happy doing the multi orchestration in the background and stuff like that. I know I need people in team. You can't get far without team even still for the reasons that we kind of said. But I'd rather take a slower path to getting team that are better quality with the right, timing and tempo than rushing somebody just because they're the the least bad option that we have when it's not a good fit, and it's just going to burn everyone's time, burn everyone's energy, and not kind of get there. And anybody's subject to being that good person, right? It's just about caring at the end of the day. So I'm not gating anything in what we're doing. I'm saying, do you know why you're showing up? And are you excited about this and motivated? And if you're not, that's cool. Well, I'll help you with something else. It's totally good. But if you're going to be here, I expect you to just show up every day and bring it and care. And if you don't feel like that anymore, just say something, and we'll figure it out.
You're a lot more polite than I am. I usually say I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's one additional step, I guess. Yeah.
There you go. In terms of, we kind of danced around it, but I'm going to bring it up. In terms of a subject, obviously, I think it's part of your life. It's part of my life, and obviously part of 2026 right now. And it's AI. And that's such a broad subject. I can just bring it up, and obviously we can go so many different directions. I guess where I'd like to start is the description of your business itself. If you were to say, this is the sector I'm in, or this is the category I'm in, what I'm hearing is consulting, but sometimes people see that as a positive connotation, something see it as a negative. What category would you put yourself in, or what sector?
I think historically it would have been more consulting because it was more focused on the business, I would say. And I still love doing that. But I would actually say it's more education and transformation, to be honest with you, these days. It's content. It's providing products and things that help people orient, because it's a little bit complex right now, and orchestrate effectively while working through the lens of what they care about and what they want to get to. So I'd say it's education and transformation more than anything, with some, of course, consulting and services. I do a little bit of that too. But yeah, I'd say those two specifically.
So in terms of your clients and yourself, where is AI entering? What's your opinion as it relates to it? Will it replace us, you and I?
Ooh, just that. The number one or number two place that I think is going to be very, very, very hard to replace. It's like the line of thinking is this: is there going to be business moving forward or not? Right? If everybody thinks it's just universal basic income or opportunity income or whatever else it is, and we're never going to work again, okay, that's one argument. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm just saying that's an argument. Okay, let's just assume that's not accurate, and people are going to care for business. Okay, if people are going to care for business, right, then at the tippy top of the pyramid has to be differentiation, because that is literally what business is. If you can't solve that problem, you can't win. Well, LLMs and models are not good at that. They're patternistic. That's what they do. And so that is where humans by default have to be able to come in, right? And so that implies creativity, putting different parts together, and very dynamically solving that, because the world is moving pretty fast right now. Very, very, very complex, in my opinion. The second component of that is orchestration, right? And this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, where it could be specialists, like you said. It could be one person who's full stack. It could be anything in between. But this, better than anybody, right? Like, the team needs to be orchestrated perfectly, regardless if it's 5 people, 50 people, or 1 person. It needs to orchestrate perfectly. That's gotten not only more complex right now, but everyone around you is doing that very, very quickly too. You're able to sprout out competitors very fast, or technologies very fast, or things like that. So you need to be very fluid in the current world. So the question is like, how the heck do you do that when you're teams of 50 or teams of 10 or teams of 5, which is kind of why, if you're in the direction of like the most agile pathway, is smaller teams, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. And
so to me, those are the tippy top of the pyramid. I'd say it is very hard for machine to be able to replace that. And I think I don't want to call it a mistake, but like one challenge and trap I think some people are falling into right now is people are sharing on social media, like, holy shit, look what I produced in this thing, this sick website, whatever else, because everyone wants to put out clickbait and bullshit, whatever else, or they just don't know any better. And the reality is that all they're spitting out is in the current context, 80% quality thing that no longer is sufficient enough for differentiation, because everyone can do that. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And the question is how do you grab the other 20%? That is very, very hard. That's like why terms like the word taste are coming out, or things like that. It is very hard to do that. To do that effectively, you need to have a world model. The world model is changing every single day. And somehow you need to be able to wedge in there and create a brand that's going to be able to stay forever and be able to actually work forever, with the right design, with the right nuance, with evolution that exists, with the products that are underneath it. Very, very, very hard. Like, very, very hard these days. But to summarize, I don't think business is going anywhere. I think it's assumption number 1. I think business is staying. And I think those are the more complex things that exist, is like detail and creativity. Organization, I think, is a really critical skill, I'd say. Systems creation, which has always been the thing, but like in a different way right now to some extent. That's at the tippy top of the pyramid, in my opinion.
It's a good answer.
What do you think about that? I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this.
So in Obviously you talk about what you know, right? And what
Yeah.
I know is small, medium-sized businesses, right?
Yeah.
And so when I look at AI, I'm seeing it from almost from the completely other side of the bridge. It's we're being asked, they know it's a good tool, they know it's going to give them a competitive edge. Hey, I want AI, and they're just using it as a noun, simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the most difficult thing is, and I think you would really understand this based off what you're doing, is AI only can help if there's an existing system or structure in the first place. That's the only way it can help. I can make it better through the use of AI. I can make it more efficient. I can make it faster, whatever it is. And so the AI aspect of the two biggest things we hear is AI coming to replace me as an employee? So we talked, about that. And then on this side is, can you just put AI in? It is only as good as the ERP, or it's only as good as the system that is there and that you can attach it to, and it can learn and then develop and make it more efficient. Yes, it can work 24 hours a day. Yes, it can work 365. But it actually has to have enough ingredients in the first place to be able to develop. So that's the side I'm seeing from just the, can AI replace, when we go back to the original question, which is, do you hold clients accountable, or do you have to hold them? Are you an accountability coach? There's no AI that's going to replace that, right? And if you are a good coach as it relates to getting results out of your clients, by helping them change behavior and adapt and maintain to habits that are going to make them successful, no AI can replace that physically.
No.
So,
No,
it's go ahead.
Yeah, good. I was gonna say it's a super nuanced topic there too, right? Because it's tough for AI to read all that data and all that signals. In some ways, it can do it better than us, but in many ways, it can't. It's not precise enough always to be able to do that, even as it gets better. And there's so much nuance you pick up from seeing the situation and seeing multimodal people's faces, what's going on here in the situation, to be able to put the pieces together to do that effectively, right? It's very, very, very hard to do that. I like your question though of, this question people ask of like, is AI going to replace humans? Is AI going to take my job? Because to me, the answer to that question is, it comes back to a comment that I made earlier, which is at the tippy top of the KPIs to me in your dashboard, in your mission control these days, is what is the velocity I'm learning at these days, given the world is moving.
The value add that you bring to the team.
Yeah. And if the answer right now is, I am not growing like this, then it is going to take your job. And it's not that it's going to take your job. It's going to take part of your job, and somebody else who's going up the curve is going to take the rest of it, is what's going to happen, right? And then some. And if you are going up the curve, then it's not going to take your job, and then some. The opposite of that, you're going to have more opportunity, more whatever. So it's like one of these things where like everyone's doing their best they can, myself included. And I'm messing up all day, every day, and running into walls. But it's a choice. And so if the people choose not to exercise the choice because they want to resist technology, or at least explore it at the very least, that's a choice at the end of the day. And I would say it can't do everything well. It's not perfect. It has lots of problems. And that's why we laugh about it. But at least try. At least dig into it every day and figure out the limitations of it and work around it is kind of my thought.
Talk about for a second your relationship with AI so far, just as an individual. When did you get into it? What have you dabbled with? How has it gone? And I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'll kind of ask clarifying questions, but I'm just going to put it out there. How is your relationship? And I do mean relationship with AI gone as an individual.
Yeah. I mean, we all know the Facebook origin times and so on and so forth. And it's complicated, is my relationship with AI these days, is what I would say. And here's the bigger first question for me. Is it net positive or net negative, right? That's the question. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure that out right now. It's definitely net positive, explicitly net positive, because there are things that I can do right now that I could not have done otherwise. My frustration comes in with precision. It's that even with like precise orchestration and design and systems creation and bigger system creation that wraps around it and so on, there are some limits to how precise it could be, or it takes a certain number of iterations to be able to refine it, or 72 versions of a system to be able to finally get it to function correctly. It's not uncommon stuff. Like whenever anyone's building technology, it takes bug stamping and improving. It's normal stuff. But I think the disconnect is, the marketing and perception that exists of what AI can do for you, as if it's like out of the box magic,
Right.
which is becoming very old, very fast to a lot of people, I think. And the reality, which is it's software, or can generate software with like iterations on top of it. That's hard because, the expectation is a lot. The world is moving fast. Every day, if you go on social media, you probably feel a little bit worse about yourself because somebody's talking about how they, made $100 million last night using AI or something like that, or some other bullshit. And it's hard. You're orchestrating a lot. And so my battle specifically has been on every day, how can I get this more precise, use my time more effectively, and just get to better system, better process, support my team doing it to kind of get there. So it's complicated is the summary, but definitely net positive.
No, definitely net positive. I don't really even have an addictive personality. However, I find myself being a little addicted.
Yeah, for sure.
Like how I got into it, and if you're going to find this story cute, my girlfriend is 18 years younger than I am, right? And obviously she sees ChatGPT come out and it's in the beta form and everything like that, and she brings it forth and she says, "Oh, look, this new cool thing, and look at the cute picture or the cute song and everything that I've created with this. This would be really great for business. You could do lots of stuff. This is what they're telling." And of course, I'm like, I'm good. I don't have time for it. I'm good. I'm good. This goes for about 3 weeks, and I said, okay, let me play with it. Start playing with it, and all of a sudden the addiction starts. And I've gone from the chat to the Claude to all through all the platforms, and now I've landed on Perplexity Computer, which is obviously agents from all of them. And it was almost the evolution of it was that I figured out that I would work with our AI department, right? We do have an AI department. We do have an IT department. And my difficulty or the frustration was that if I wanted them to build something, right? If we put a business analyst in between us, I'd have to teach that business analyst the whole concept first before they could build the walls, right? Yeah. That might be a 3-week process. That might be a 4-week process. Even if we were doing sprints, it really was such a long process. And I was telling you, off premise, of building a software that is going to change the world, of course, in business. But obviously the integrity of that information and being able to put it in place. And so it got to the point where I said, I've got to learn this inside and out, because if I do it, I can work on it whenever I want. I don't have to teach a concept to another individual to teach another individual to code that individual. I can just teach what's in front of me. And the relationship has been up and down, just like the speed that I was able to develop things, you almost get addicted to that speed. But then when it goes backwards, you're highly frustrated. Like you just took probably 2 years off of your life in terms of how long that from inception to the delivery of that product. And you did it in 2 weeks, but then all of a sudden you go backtrack 3 days and you're just so frustrated. Like this is so irritating, but that's how the relationship seems to be developing. And I think a lot of the individuals I talk with, they have this expectation where right out of the box, but even when they get a little good at it, they expect perfection at all times. And it is a patience. It is you really have to be able to be precise in your communication at all times. Yes. And I think but it is net positive, as you said, for sure.
I think what you just described, if I'm hearing correctly, is the pathway to full stack, if I'm not mistaken, which is how do we avoid the communication and translation to the other person, because people are always the challenge, right? The training and so on and so. I'm joking a little bit, but it
is similar for sure.
And your point is salient. I mean, at this point, I am 942 years of age, according to the work I've done in the past 6 months. Every day I'm aging 2 years, like you're kind of suggesting. It is hard. It is taxing, but if harnessed correctly, I think it kind of brings up to me another question for you to flip your own framework on you, which is what's driving you every single day. Is it fear of not being behind the curve and you don't want to be behind the curve? Is it greed and the opportunity? Is it the combination of both? Of course. Is it fear of what you just described, which is, the fact that you're going to age too fast, especially if you have to hand off to people and so on and so forth. It's not that person's not good or anybody's not good. It's just that it's very arduous to be able to do that, basically. And this is like self-preservation plus progress plus whatever else, right? Like this is the tricky challenge right now. I feel like that I think we're both going through, which is what is a human these days and how do you relate to them on a team? And it's just clearly not what it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right? That's what's clear. But what the answer is to that, I have no idea. Every day I'm like, I feel like I'm trying to figure out what the heck the answer is to that.
And where is it going? Like that's what I keep thinking. Like what is going to be the next evolution? What is going to be the next structure? To kind of answer your question, like what motivates and drives, right? Yeah. Is I'm at this stage in my career. You come into any career, we'll just say the career. You obviously have the first focus in most people's career is, can I make a good income? Right? Can I provide for my family? Can I develop wealth? All those different aspects. I'm not at retirement age, and I don't even really consider retirement. But right now, the biggest thing that race against time is whatever I've accomplished in my life up until now, I do not put a lot of weight in it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so right now the focus, and I've done some self-reflection and really looking inward of what am I motivated by now? And the only answer I can come back with in one simple word is legacy, and what legacy I leave.
Yeah.
And that, for me, I'm driven by, I was always a big kid. Okay. And as a big kid, I played a lot of sports, and playing a lot of sports, I was the guy that, did very well in sports, but I was also the guy that everybody wanted to test themselves against, I guess is the best way to put it. So I was always the big dumb jock. And that there's a little pain as it relates to that, this big dumb jock. So I have spent, and I'll be completely unveiled, 30 years, right, with the intention of proving to the world, whoever the world is, without having to be the smartest person in the room. I'm intelligent. And I have this knowledge base that, I've procured over 26 years and all these experiences on the psychology and business side. And I'm trying to, and I feel like I'm racing, and all the coding I'm doing right now and the tools I'm developing and whatever it is to cement that legacy. But I do feel like I'm racing and that's why the addiction's there. The 3 a.m. I get up, immediately grab my phone, start coding, is that race against time.
That thank you for sharing that. That resonates. I get what you were saying. It makes total sense. And I can almost see the 30-year ago version that you're kind of describing as you're describing it, where it's coming from. That's super cool. Yeah.
So how did you get into what you're doing now? I kind of like at this point, if we can what were the stepping stones that get us to here? Right.
Yeah.
So how did we get into this? I know we moved to LA. Were we doing this when we got to LA? Is this a new venture? How long has it been going on?
Yeah. So I'll go back a little bit before that. I grew up in a pretty entrepreneurial family mentality. I had a tutoring business when I was very, very young. I didn't take the McDonald's job or the Tim Hortons job or whatever else. Not that those are great jobs as well, but I kind of went the entrepreneurial path. Right. And
can I pause you just for 1 second?
Yeah.
The entrepreneurial path, that was you. What about your parents? If you don't mind, I want to ask what they were entrepreneurial, you said. So
entrepreneurial. Yeah. Entrepreneurial as well. Right. So it was not, how can you take this job, or not, how can you be a tutor, but let's go create the tutoring business is what it was, where I'd hire, classmates and so on and so forth and built that tutoring business.
Whole enterprise.
Basically. Yeah. And enterprise is a generous word, but yeah, that is correct. And so, fast forward post college, whatever. I did the corporate thing. I went there, did consulting, I did corporate, so on and so forth. But I was never a very good corporate citizen. And it's, I like the subject matter. I like the people. What I didn't like was the bureaucracy, the speed, the incentive structure, things like that, basically. Right. So I was always doing my own stuff on the side, for better or worse. And I did a lot of different weird stuff. Like, you name it at this point, I've probably done it. I've had consulting businesses, services businesses. I had a lobster meat business that I started and I stopped. I had, technology businesses. I've had, I don't know, you name it. I've done it. Let's say.
So does that give you a broad understanding of all, let's just say, the operations and function of these different sectors? And obviously it leads now. Do you find yourself, you're going in there and you're looking at the process and structure? I've been involved in this business. You develop your own system. And then are we selling these off, or are we closing? Are they trial and error? Where are we at in terms of that entrepreneurial spirit, and what does it develop?
Yeah. My model always has been, and it's always how I envision it, is like a very fast fail model. So I want to fire a bunch of bullets that make sense and juggle several things at a time. And as soon as I see anything I don't like, I'll just shut it down and I'll take the lesson, and it's totally okay. So I'll give an example of that, right? An example of that was, this lobster meat business that I had, right? I started it because I had a girlfriend at the time who was from Maine, and, knew some producers over there. I knew the brand of lobster and everyone loving it. I was in New York at the time. I knew there were very high margins. So I'm like, this sounds good. Okay. I knew somewhat about myself at the time, right? Everyone's learning about themselves always, but I knew somewhat about myself at the time. I felt it out. I marketed online at the time. I knew there was an opportunity for it. I got my first customers. I got 5 customers. I shuttled a cooler of lobster meat from Maine down to New York, and I went to those customers and hand delivered it everywhere from Yonkers to the Upper East Side to everywhere else. I literally hand delivered the lobster meat from them, right? As that was happening, as like proof of concept, I then looked into a little bit of permitting and so on. This is a little bit out of order, I will say, in hindsight, but nonetheless, looked into permitting, a little bit of nuance and logistics. I thought about it a little bit more because sometimes you can only get a good sense by actually feeling it out. Sometimes there's only so much research can do for you, and you have to actually feel it out to some extent. And I came to the conclusion of both this is a good business and it is not a business I want to do. And I think there are better choices that exist. So I shut it fast, and I moved on to the other things that I was doing at the time. I was doing a real estate business and some other things, and I kind of just shut it really, really fast. And the same thing goes for anything. Like, get data, test data to the best of your ability, feel it out. I'm just comfortable with shutting things down. And the metric that always stands out is that I know I'm doing my job if my friends are making fun of me. Because I have a graveyard of businesses that are there, and they're like, what happened to this one, or what's going with this one, or they bring up jokes. That's it. That's just kind of how it was. And so the last comment I would say is that all led to the time I was in Los Angeles, where people kind of knew I was always building stuff. And so they started to always ask for help with their businesses. How do you create this? What about this? What should I do? What should I build? These kinds of questions, I would say, or existing ones. And that just became a thing over time. And so it became consulting, services, whatever. And now it focuses more on, I'd say, the person than the business, although it is a little bit of the business as well.
Very nice. I heard a rumor, and obviously I think you put it out there, so it's really not a rumor. My understanding is that you're a good poker player, and not just a good poker player. It resulted in paying for a portion or all of education. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Let's talk
that's
about
true.
that.
Poker was also from my family. I was taught that when I was very, very young.
Oh, yeah.
And young, like for the sake of psychology, like you said, and game theory and math and like raw skills that are in there, right? And I just loved it for the challenge. It's very common, I think, that like former athletes and so on like poker a lot, and other people as well. So I played a lot. Again, that was part of the reason why I even moved to Los Angeles. Big poker scene out here as well. When I was in college was the time where the online poker boom was rising. So said differently, we were at a world in which data was not very, very, very prominent. Okay. This was like the start of Google, the start of, search engines, things like that. I used to do my research in a library, right? When I started college, I barely had a computer at the point, right? And there was not a lot of data. Therefore, there was a world in which like poker was becoming this known thing, but people weren't super sharp at that point. There weren't forums, people weren't sharing anything. So the games were really, really soft at the time. Like you can go in there. It's like not even like anything I was doing was special, to be honest with you. I was like pretty good. And because I was pretty good, making it just a good, it's like the analogy, Jay, that I'm sure you've used before, which is I'd rather a pretty good entrepreneur in a really, really good business than an extremely good entrepreneur in a so-so business, for instance. Right. And this is kind of like that. Like I was pretty good, and I think I'm pretty good, but it was more like the timing of it, to be honest with you, that it was just a really good opportunity. Kind of killed it playing online poker and some other things and paid for some stuff. But that's also served then as the foundation of how I think about business and decision making and not being super averse to placing bets and so on and so forth. It's actually been a really useful skill set, I'd say.
That's video, obviously. Do you play a lot of like Vegas games and live games? I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. These days not, because I'm sure there's some of your fans and your followers who are poker people by trade. And for those who are not poker people listening, poker is the kind of thing where data is very, very important. So let me say what that means in a different way. If you're going to play live in a casino and you're going to play at a poker table, I had sessions in the past, not anymore, I don't have time for it, but where I'd be sitting at the table for 24 hours because I'm trying to monitor every little piece of data I can get from everyone at the table and patterns and things like that. Because I need that data to make better decisions, right? It takes a lot of time. I don't have 24 hours of time these days to be able to play or energy. I'm busy coding like you're doing as well, right? It's just not the choice of game these days. I like to play still. I really, really enjoy it. And if I had time, I'd play once in a while, but it's a lot. It's kind of taxing. So you have to be very, very focused in there as well. And just not as much time these days to play. But whenever I do get time, I for sure try to play.
So part of my background, psychology degree, is actually where I went first and foremost. And then I started doing self-education as it relates to personality styles, birth order, as I said, neurolinguistics, but also micro-expressions. So you put me in a boardroom, or you put me in a room where there's a decision process of some sort. All I do is read the face. I read the face all day long. Your micro expressions, when somebody says something, the whole contempt, like all those TV shows and movies, like I'm that guy that kind of just sits there, consumes, watches every aspect, triggers on something, grabs it, and so on and so forth. Terrible poker player.
Wow.
Terrible. I am not good at it. You would think I would be
I'm
so...
the reverse. I'm the reverse of you, funny enough, right? I get none of my data from, I'm not like blind to it. Don't get me wrong. But like as a percentage of 100%, I get 2% of my data from what you just described, I would say. And I get 98% of my data from what they're doing at the table, how they're betting, kind of what's happening, these little other signals that exist, maybe a little bit of body language, I would say, but not looking at their face at all. I found it to be more detrimental than productive at times, trying to read what's on their face. It just distracts me from like better data at times. I wish I had your skill though. It's a good skill.
It's all different types, because I have on my team, I've got a guy that's got a couple of bracelets, not necessarily Vegas bracelets, but bracelets, let's just say.
Wow.
So obviously he's done something terrible at math though. However, it's terrible at math. So he's not taking data in. He's just reading people all day long.
Yeah.
And he's really good. I avoid playing, in his circle for sure. He'll always take me. Where are we going from here? What's the next step for you? Obviously, you've talked about there's some existential, what's the word I'm looking for? Thought patterns about where you're going to take it next. Are you at a position? I talked about legacy. Where are you in your career as it relates to what's the next step from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think very much like you. I think you said you're 51. You said, is that correct? I'm a little bit younger. I'm 43. But similar in terms of how you're describing things. I'd say one of the main reasons I do what I do is I like to help people, and I like people to be understood and understanding of cultures and cross cultures and things like that. It's, similar to what you're describing in different ways. So that's definitely a big component, right? I mean, where I'm laser focused right now is, I want people in the confusing current world to be the best version of themselves and get to what they want to get to, right? So much like you do for family businesses and meeting with the CEOs or the executive team or the family, getting them to success, same concept, just in a different way. And in my way is, for you as a person controlling what you can control, how do you maximize your 24/7 using AI or otherwise to be able to do that effectively? And their dashboard may not just be what's my P&L for my company or my business I want to start. And maybe also I want to be healthy. I want to spend certain time with family, whatever else. Okay, great. How do we use 24/7 clocks and parallel processing and AI and so forth to have your version of your KPI dashboard to be able to kill it every day? Be it you want to do that, just want to crush in your business and you're younger, you want to build crazy shit and just, and have a good time and grow and monetize things or build things that make you happy or whatever else. How do you do that effectively, even if your dashboard does not look like the same KPIs as a traditional business? That's kind of a say, right? And doing that at the individual person level, but at scale. And that's why my content is, the content that I've been putting out recently. That's why my communities are my communities. The thing that's different about these pockets, like you, I think in scale, of course, right? And the thing that's different about these pockets is there are different segments that I'm doing that with, right? I'm doing it with a group in Asia that tends to be a little bit, somewhat experienced, but a little bit newer or even newer than that, right? I'm doing with other people that are in other markets that are more experienced and more advanced, but are just still trying to orient to the current world and figure out what that means, right? Different segments, different pockets, same theme at the end of the day, which is, how do I take my perception of things, like you have your perception of the world and everything, and confine that within 24 hours a day to go 24/7 while using tools to the best of our ability to create the happiest life possible, be it on the business side or otherwise, basically. So that's the mission, that plus global understanding and understanding language and cultures, I would say. That's it. That's the mission. That's what I wake up every day super excited to be able to do. And that's at, like, you said it right before, like that's at the level of making sure my team is happy and they're growing and they're getting to what they want to get to, the communities and getting to where they want to get to, right? Like it all blurs at the end of the day. It's just a bunch of people with incentives that exist that are trying to get to where they want to get to. And I just do whatever the heck I can do to help with that. And sometimes I get it right. And more often than not, I get it wrong. And then I wake up the next day and try to do it a little bit better, I guess.
So I have a kind of a funny question, obviously a little off the side and maybe a little invasive. I have to ask this question. With your clients, it's, are you in or are you out? I kind of got that, right? Is this you and the businesses, you go in, get the data, you decide, am I in or am I out? What was your dating life like in terms of like the data points you got from that? I was just like so decisive. Like, did you marry your wife on the second date kind of thing? Or was that a long dating process? Sorry to be invasive.
Can I give you a funny story for a half a minute about me and my wife real fast? The funny story about me and my wife is that, like, when we started dating, I'm a spreadsheet driven person. I'm tracking as we're starting dating, like, what is my sentiment on a score of 1 to 10? Like, how do I feel? What are my observations that day? Things like that, basically, right? she's super sharp and smart, but she's not a spreadsheet person, right? So when we went to go get our house, she's like, no, I'm just going to go and I'm going to like know it at the time. I'm going to feel it, right? And I presume that was a similar case for like us when we were dating to some extent from her perspective, right? What's funny is like analytical people not being able to get out of their own way, for lack of a better description. It's like you can analyze shit as much as you want to analyze it. And at some point, you're going to need to make a decision.
Right.
And the humor of this is of just her being operating at a different level than I'm operating, of course, is like, despite my data and my spreadsheets, at the end of the day, it was like, does she make me happy? And is there a future? And am I just like gut stuff is what I'm trying to describe here. So that's a long way of me saying, I lived my dating life a little bit more in the analytical column, I'd say at times, but that's because the right decision and the actual decision to be made was because the gut side wasn't there. It wasn't the correct thing. And if I just thought about it a little bit more smartly at the time, I would have realized that, to be honest with you. So it's this joke of like analytical people not being able to get out of their own way at times, right? Which doesn't make it wrong. It just means it's a tool and needs to be used correctly. So I guess, this is where we're at 43, and maybe, at 45, it'll be a little bit better. And so on and so forth.
Did she find your spreadsheets as it relates to the relationship?
I showed her the spreadsheets, actually.
There really was?
Yeah.
I actually thought you were just joking, but there really was spreadsheets.
No, I showed it to her, and her only comment is, knowing me and the eccentricity, is like, why do you not continue it, or why are you not doing that? There's humor in it to some extent.
Definitely.
There's humor in like my way of doing it versus her way of doing it, and both of which are good, just different kind of a
and
thing.
opposites
So,
attract. That is a real thing. Opposites do attract for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe think of something, a study I was just reading, and it was a comment that you made before. I apologize. I inventoried it, and then that popped in my brain. I had to get that out. The aspect that a high percentage of neurodivergent individuals are entrepreneurs and CEOs. And that study was done by Dr. Chris Crawford at the University of Tampa. Do you have any comment as it relates to, as you start developing these individual KPI boards, is there a neurodivergence that comes into that you're recognizing as you kind of personalize and structure it for these organizations?
Yeah. Are you asking that for me, myself, if I fall into that category, or for other people, or both?
Both, really. I recognize that because after I watched, and this study is a couple of years old, but after I looked at that, I started seeing that pattern more, where I had never recognized it before with the business owners that I was dealing with.
Yeah. And I think in 2026, that's more the case, in my opinion. And the reason is it's just very complex right now. The speed of data and stuff means you have to be able to connect dots very, very well. Otherwise, you're just going to sink. And I think we're all like building that muscle to some extent, which is another way of saying we're all probably becoming some version of neurodivergent, I would say. And it's not 1-0 necessarily, probably. For me, myself, I mean, I think I definitely fall into that category. But I also think I like working with those people, to be honest with you. It kind of ties back to something I said before, which is I think a lot of people, myself included, have been, almost everybody has been misunderstood at times, where people just don't get you every single day. And these people, very, very especially, they're often like very, very brilliant people, but can't get the words out in some cases. And I've been guilty of that myself. I love working with these people because I've been there myself. I know what it's like. And I have at least my opinion of how to harness that effectively. So even if I can give them a little bit to be able to get to that, I love that. And I love orienting towards the mission controls, like we're talking about, orienting towards how do you combat your ADHD, which is your problem is not that you can't come up with good ideas. You can come up with a million of them. Your problem is that you're coming up with a million of them and you don't know how to focus on narrowing it to some extent, right? It's the same problem that I have often. It's the same problem that a lot of people have often these days. And harnessing that. I love this challenge. I love working with people like this more than any, because they're really smart at times. It's just a harnessing question, ironically enough, at least to me.
Two things I'd like to get your comment on. Historically, that neurodivergent itself was measured based off of the delta between your verbal intelligence and your nonverbal intelligence. Are you familiar with that?
I didn't know that, no.
So if there was a degree, and I believe, I'll probably misquote, if there was a percentile 4 or above between your verbal intelligence and nonverbal intelligence, that was neurodivergent. And they were doing that with standardized tests, your ability to communicate, obviously, what you see, pattern recognition, et cetera, and obviously these nonverbal tests that would do it. But that was the catch-all as it relates to, this is how we're going to determine somebody is ADHD, which was sort of a catch-all. So that's one comment, and I'd like to see your comments on that. But the second one that's kind of more important to me, is AI a tool now that takes an ADHD individual, the neurodivergent individual, and harnesses that power that they didn't have the capability operating in, let's say, a world a year ago or 2 years ago?
Yeah, good questions, man. That's a juicy batch of questions.
Mm.
The first one I can answer pretty easily, which is, you learn something new every day over here, I guess. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I guess the name makes sense, is my reaction to that. That makes a lot of sense. These are people that have things to share that don't know how to share them necessarily, right? I mean, that definitely makes sense. I have maybe a surprising answer for the second one, maybe not what you're expecting to hear, which is, my answer to that is kind of a fuck no to some extent, which is, your question was, does it harness that skill effectively, whatever? And the reason I'm saying that is the answer is because the nature of this thing is fast moving data, fast moving world, and parallel processing, 12 chats going on at a time. Somehow they have to link and build systems and all make sense, whatever else. The skill that's needed more than almost any right now is organization and getting calm from that to some extent. And I think a lot of these people don't thrive in doing that. That's not a skill, actually. If it were a skill, they'd be able to focus and prioritize and things like that to some extent. I'm not speaking for everybody, but generally speaking. So to me, the answer is, off the bat, I actually think it's going to do way more bad than good for this particular group.
That was my question going to be. Is it the same thing?
But if you can get past that point and get to mission control and organize, which is very, very, very hard and is always a work in progress, and the world is moving, then yeah, I think these people are going to absolutely crush it, to be honest with you. But it's kind of like a very 1-0 kind of a thing, where it's either going to be a big, big, big problem for the time being for all of us, I would say, overwhelming, or it could be a superpower. And I think that's kind of why we're seeing in general why some people are like orienting well and killing it, and some people are just paralyzed and overwhelmed and that kind of a thing. And it's understandable. And I think the only missing ingredient, to me, as silly as this may sound, is time. Exactly what you said you're doing right now is you get up and, without burning out, of course, right? You're just grinding on this stuff. And you're grinding on it because you have to figure out how to orient to it. Which tool do I use? And, what do I do in the day? And what do I do first, second, third? And how many things can I manage? What's my capacity? And how do they fit together? And the really, 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 really complex problems that exist. That language, right? Like really complex problems that for anybody, neurodivergent or otherwise, would melt your brain, to be honest with you, right? And it just takes time to be able to figure out what to do and even get anywhere. It's hard right now. It's really, really hard right now, I feel like.
I know we're still on the subject, and maybe that's not what you came in for, but I would just want your opinion, because you seem to have very, very, well, first and foremost, the ability to communicate your thoughts and feelings. Let's talk about the arts just for a second, and the arts as it relates to now being developed by AI, whether it's music, whether it's visual, and so on and so forth. Is it, from an analytical mindset, that's really where I was going, are you impressed by what it can create now? Or do you look at it, and again, asking analytical this, I probably already know the answer, looking at the romantic side of art, and obviously that it was done by a human hand or it's developed by a human. What's your opinion as it relates to that?
I mean, I think the question, I'm not like an art collector, but I say I've never been like an art person. But the question is, to me, is like, what is good? Like, what does good even mean anymore? Like, what does that mean? Like, if Midjourney or something can spit something out and it's like really beautiful and it's better than anything I would have ever thought to create, because I'm let's just say I'm a designer or something like that. Like, is that good? Or is the fact that I'm walking down the street, because I took a photo of this the other day, and I'm seeing 8 movie posters or posters on the thing, and they all kind of feel similar-ish to some extent, even though you can't put your finger on it. Is that not good anymore because it could generate it too fast? And it kind of comes back to the differentiation question, right?
Right.
So what the heck is differentiation at the end of the day? Where does it come from? Like, what even is this thing? It's a tricky question, to be honest with you. And I don't think anybody's got a good pulse on that. Some people are like, oh, good is if you put content out. That's why I want my content really, really, really raw right now. I don't want editing. I don't want design. I don't want anything. I just want it to look like me with a sideways camera.
Authentic.
Yeah, authentic. Exactly. Is that good? I don't fucking know. I mean, I think it's just like it's real is what it is, which is not necessarily good, right? It's like everyone's allergic to now very well designed things, because over well designed feels like it means over processed. I just think everyone's confused right now of what that means, to be honest with you. And I don't think anybody has any idea of like what good art is anymore or what's not good art. I think the best litmus test that I can maybe, as of today, August 6th, day it is, that I can give is, how does it make people feel? And does it make sense? And does it connect? Maybe that's it, to be honest with you. And that's where the taste comes in, and the subjectivity, and why it's such a complex equation of, like creating a brand, like the name meets the design, meets the positioning, meets what's underneath it, means the copy, meets the tone, it's a really hard question to solve that problem right now. And it's not even static. It needs to evolve over time. So I'm of the belief, I'm very impressed with some of the things, and it's certainly taken up my standard of what I can do in certain things. That's not my expertise necessarily, for sure. Does that mean it's good? No, because if I ask that to somebody else who can do that, or the 10 other people who are doing the same thing as me, they're like, that's not good. That's just slop. Or whatever definition they want to actually put in. Basically, it's just like the standard's gotten confused, I feel like.
The whole reason for the question is my producer bet me that I couldn't make you say it's about feeling instead of analytical data, and you actually said.
I said feeling, did I not?
Yes, you did. So I won. I absolutely won.
You're a good read. That's the point.
Last question, and then obviously, thank you for your time so far. My understanding is, and it kind of is on the tail end of this, you dabble in or got involved in NFTs. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah.
Accurate? I want to.
Yeah.
As somebody, I'm going to tell you right now, conceptually I understand, but I don't understand. Right. And I kind of want to pretend that obviously juvenile in this concept, and it kind of explain what it is and why there's such an attraction to it.
NFTs are neurodivergent also, is what I would say. As in, people don't fully understand what's going on there, and they get misplaced. NFTs are technology, first off, right? That's the first and foremost principle we need to realize. They're digital assets. So if you ask the question without calling it that, right? Would you rather have a membership that you can resell or a membership that you can't resell? Would you rather have a membership that you can verify that you own or a membership that you can't verify that you own? I know it's like a kind of weird question, right? But like one of them is like technological innovation, just innovating on a concept that already exists. And one of them's not, right? Would you rather have a horse and a buggy or would you rather have a car? I'd rather have the car. Okay. It's like reasonably cut and dry question. It's not cut and dry, but reasonably cut and dry question, right? So just technology at the end of the day. Where it gets, kind of confused and mislabeled is when you have, as you know, this like technological innovation, right? And there's a profit motive attached to it, right? And you have irrational markets, like with art and so on and so forth, money's thrown around. And when money's thrown around, you get bad actors that come in, like what happened, a few years ago, basically. And you have a lot of bullshit that gets tossed up at that point. People are able to spin it up very fast because it's technology and it's just generative art or the equivalent, right? With a community. And people can spin it really, really fast. And you have some people making a lot of money and some people losing a lot of money, and it gets a very, very bad name. And, then it takes, for such a bad name that got put on this thing, it's going to take several years and a name change, to become something at this point. It is 1,000,000% going to be something and is something. Like 1,000,000% that it is a thing. It's going to unlock memberships, digital memberships, so on and so forth, right? But it just has a very big black eye at this point, right? And if harnessed correctly, it could be very, very, very effective. But you've just got 3 layers of challenges that exist. You've got tarnish on a name, you've got misinterpreted technology of what it is, and you have something that's technical. So if put in the hands of the wrong people, it's subject to security issues and things like that, and scams and hacks and so on and so forth. So it's just like very nascent stage, much like, the internet was at the stage of the internet, where it's just working out the kinks and getting bad actors. And, 10 years from now, we'll be looking back, calling it something different, and everyone will just say that's society, in my opinion. But for now, it's still at this like several years past awkward phase where it just is more bad than good, I think, to the average person probably. But I think it's way more good than bad. It just has to be used properly, I think. That's my opinion. At least.
I assume you have a portfolio of it yourself? And it's
a lot of it's dead. But yes, I do nonetheless. It has to, like your business thing. These are businesses also, right? So they generated cash in many cases where they raised money in essence by selling a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't manage their burn effectively, they went out of business, for lack of a better description. And given the fact that they weren't earning royalties, which they were originally, which is the correct model in my opinion, they just ran out of cash, to be honest with you, and were mismanaged or had misaligned incentives or that kind of a thing. So yeah, I've got a bunch. And many of them are graveyarded at this point, or it would take some impressive revival to happen for them to be dug out of distress.
It's like hanging on to Dogecoin right now. I'm not putting them in the same pail. I'm sure you react emotionally from that, but it's kind of like hanging on to Dogecoin for sure.
It is.
Sort of. Well, Ethan, this has been a great conversation. You said it all. It was fantastic. I really, really appreciate your time. And I want to do a follow-up one. I think we could go for hours, like just back and forth, both philosophically and intellectually. So again, I appreciate you being here.
Super fun, Jay. Thanks for having me. Congrats on winning that bet, by the way. I'm glad I could help.
Perfect. Have a good weekend, my man.
Cheers, you too, man.
From the goal. We the chief for growth. 88,000 deep took the O. Return the owner. That's the only truth.